Thanks for joining us for this week's message. At First Baptist, we exist to love God, love people, and make disciples. We hope you find yourselves blessed, challenged, and encouraged by this week's message. And for more information, you can follow us on social media or visit us at fbcrockhill.org.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here with you guys. 4th year in a row. That's crazy. I guess I haven't offended too many people yet, so that's always nice to know. I actually recognize a few people's faces out there. That's kind of cool. And anyway, I even told Steve, I was like, you're welcome to invite some other voices. And he was like, no, we love hearing from you. So that's very humbling. And it's been a wonderful year this past year. We just moved into a new house. My dream was to build my own house forever and ever. And so we actually split our land and built a house next to our house, and we're B&B in that house. And it's a new 3-story house that looks like a lake house in the middle of Chattanooga, and actually did more than 50% of all the labor myself on the whole thing. So it was pretty fun. And literally, I would be at home working 12-hour days Monday through Friday, and then at some point on Friday catch a flight out to go speak someplace and get back Sunday and start all over again. And so it was really fun, and we've gotten moved in, and it's been wonderful. Went to the Grand Canyon with my wife this past year, and it's been neat. Just had a lot of different experiences as a family. So, but I am glad to be back here with you guys. And we're going to talk today continue a conversation about family. And every year we talk about families and what's going on with our kids. And today, as Steve mentioned earlier, we're going to talk about technology and social media and those kind of things and what's going on. And before we jump into that, we have to go in the Wayback Machine and see what was happening at the church at Ephesus, which may be maybe kind of a weird thing to say, but we want to look at what was happening in the first century and how that might apply to us now. And the Apostle Paul, he wrote a letter to the church at Ephesus, and he starts off that letter by saying these words. He says, "To God's holy people in Ephesus, the faithful in Christ, grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ." Now, when we read these letters, we immediately jump right through the salutations. We jump through a lot of even the first verses because we're just so used to saying, hey, what's up? But in their culture, details are important. Details matter because they did not communicate with a lot of details in their literature. And so when he includes details, we should really stop and pay attention. And he starts off this letter to this new, very different church from other churches in the area, these home groups that are meeting, and he calls them God's holy people. And then he goes on to call them God's faithful. Now, what does the word holy literally mean? This is you can be like a talk out loud Baptist. What does the word holy literally mean? Set apart. It means different from all the rest. Yes? I mean, if we had, 10 of you teenagers here and 9 are wearing dresses and one's wearing, bell bottoms, then we would go, oh, that one is holy in her clothing because she is different from all the rest. Does that make sense? And as spiritually speaking, it's saying that this person spiritually is living life different from the rest of culture. And then he goes on to call them God's faithful. He's saying that I recognize that you've committed yourself to a different cause. You committed yourself to a different worldview of Jesus, who came to turn the political system, the religious system, the familiar system, the sexuality system. He came to turn all of that upside down. And he's saying, I recognize your faithfulness to this cause. And then he's going to get into why. What is it about them that makes them different? Ephesus was, it's located, you can see it on the map here, that it's located in modern day Turkey. And one of the things that made it different was its locale. When we read through the New Testament, especially when we read through the Gospels, we as Christians today, we get very our radar gets up when we see words like cities like Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria, because those are important in the Holy Lands. But on the global scale, they were not important almost at all. They were pretty insignificant. On a global scale, you needed to be a port city to matter. You needed to be a San Francisco, a New York, a Miami. You need to be somewhere near water because that's where your influence is going to grow on the global scale. And so you can even see Ephesus is on the edge of the sea, but it's also a port city. There's a picture here of the ancient ruins that's like imagine our modern day Atlantic City, where you have the boardwalk. And you can walk through and play, the whack-a-mole and the quarter slot machines and get your cotton candy. Or today, you could go on the weekends down to your local farmer's market and buy your fresh flowers and fruits and vegetables and, woven baskets. Except back then, it wasn't just, 80 little tent vendor booths. It would go on for miles of these hundreds and hundreds, and these vendors coming from all over the known world to trade their textiles and their spices and their livestock. And so because of that, imagine you are a teenager growing up in Ephesus. You are being exposed to things that the rest of the world is not. Teenagers in other places, because you are witnessing, you get to see people from all different cultures, different countries, different skin tones, different clothing styles. Like, you're seeing all of this every day around you. Ephesus was a highly educated academic city. And so intellectual pursuits, like moving up in status in the culture, was important to them. It was a very politically important city because of its location. The last thing that made Ephesus different was its sexual expression. That Ephesus housed one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And so people would come from all over the known world, like we would go to Disneyland or Mount Rushmore, that people would come from all over the known world to witness, to behold the temple of Artemis. And this temple to Artemis was the god of sexuality and fertility. And so people would come and they would make prayers in order to conceive a child or to have a prosperous sexual life. And they would come to the temple to pray for these things. Or you could come to the temple. Now imagine, we had the temple in Jerusalem. That's the, temple to Yahweh. But this is a pagan temple, all right? But nonetheless, it is a religious site and the largest in the world. And so they would come, and if you lived in Ephesus, you could come there and you could give your alms or your offering to the pagan priest outside, and he would connect you with a female companion to go inside the temple to have a worship experience. If you're picking up what I'm throwing down, like this is what was happening in their culture. From all over the world. You're a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and you're going down the streets and you're seeing people from all over the world, speaking in all different languages. And yet one of the things they all have in common is they're coming to Ephesus for this sexualized experience of culture. And then Paul, at the end of his letter, he says these words to them. He gets to the very end of his letter and he says, "Be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children, and live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." Now, I think that Steve could do like a whole 5-week series on what does it mean to be an imitator of God. Like, there's probably even like youth curriculum out there already packaged called Imitators of God, about what does that mean? And I think it's so funny almost that Paul doesn't even tell us what that means. He doesn't even unpackage that for them. He just tells them, go be an imitator of God. And then he gives them one example of what that means. And he says, among you, don't let there be even a hint of sexual immorality. That's it. That's his whole application. Be an imitator of God. Don't be sexually immoral, not even a hint of it. Now, why do you think that is his very specific application to that church? Do you think it might be because Paul understands the culture that they're living in? And he would have probably said something very different to the church at Corinth or something different to the church at Philippi, but he understands the world that they're living in at Ephesus. And I give you this background because I want to say to you this morning that I believe that your teenagers are living in a modern day Ephesus. That they're living in a very highly sexualized culture that it is different than we experienced growing up in the 70s and 80s. Matter of fact, I think for any grown-up to say to a teenager, oh, I get it, I know what you're experiencing, is a gross overstatement, because we do not. I mean, for crying out loud, the worst that we had it growing up was trying to hide our rock music with suggestive song lyrics from our parents. But today, over 55 million of them, starting at the age of 10, have a mini computer in their pocket that within 3 seconds, they can have access to anything that they want to. I mean, the extent of technology in our life as teenagers was the football game with a blip that went up or down and forward, and that was it. I mean, like they are wired from birth. And so because of that, it affects them in ways that we do not understand. We just see it as being like, well, this is just social media. This is just, it's just a website. It's just another app. But it causes things inside them that we are largely ignorant of as grown-ups. Like, did you know that during World War II, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, has tracked teenage adolescent anxiety, depression, stress, and fear for almost 100 years now. And the highest level it had ever been was during World War II. Because what was happening, generally speaking, is fathers, brothers were overseas fighting in the war. I know there was women, but primarily, men over there fighting. And families would go to the local cinema to watch a movie. And before the movie, you got to watch a 10-minute newsreel of what's happening overseas. And so then now you have all these children and teenagers who are thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening to my dad, my brother, my uncle, And so there's all kinds of, the typical national average for adolescent stress and anxiety is 3 to 5%. But during World War II, it was almost 20%. And then after the war was over and all the fathers and brothers and uncles came home, teenage adolescent stress, anxiety, and fear plummeted back to 3 to 5%. And it stayed there until 10 years ago. And then 10 years ago, all of a sudden it started doing this. Until now, it is the highest it has ever been in the recorded history of our country. That more than 1 out of 5 of every teenager says that I struggle with persistent, that means daily, I struggle with persistent anxiety and fear in my life. And then when they poll these same teenagers and ask them, can you tell us where does this anxiety and fear come from? It's not divorce. It's not my future. It's not money. When you ask them, where does your anxiety come from? The number one answer, social media. I mean, they're trying to tell us themselves, I need your help. This is what is causing my fear within me. And yet we are largely ignorant of it. There was a survey done in the UK a few years ago. They asked 500 teenage girls about their social media. And they said, when you use your social media, what's your favorite social media? The number one answer was Instagram. The follow-up question was this: how does it make you feel within yourself when you open your Instagram account? The number one answer, more than half of all girls said, I feel stressed and I feel depressed. But yet we continue to allow 9, 10, 11-year-olds to access this information, these apps, because, well, they're just looking at hot rod cars. They just like to look at makeup tips. And we don't understand how it's really affecting them. It's why, look at this, over 80% of all teenagers say that they have posting regrets. You know what a posting regret is? A posting regret, could we get on the next slide, please? A posting regret, that's not saying something like, my mom is so mean. That a posting regret is something that you send, that you post, that you like. I've gone to over 200 public schools and private schools around the country, hundreds and hundreds of youth groups, and to every single group, I say the same thing. To you guys this morning, when it comes to social media, there's no delete, there's no do-over, and there's no take-backs. No delete, no do-over, no take-backs. Once you post it, once you send it, once you thumbs up it, once you heart it, once you shooting star it, it is now part of your digital reputation forever. That you can delete your Instagram account today, wipe it clean, say not to log out, but delete it. It is still there. There is the internet Wayback Machine, literally called the Wayback Machine, and it takes an everyday snapshot of all of your social media profiles. You may think that you're just like, Mr. Bumpalong that lives in Rock Hill who is completely unimportant. Well, guess what? They are taking a snapshot of your profile every single day for future posterity's sake, just to know what people did back in the 2020s, because the information never goes away. That your digital reputation is now everything that you're doing. And over 80% of them are saying that I have posting regrets, things I wish I could take back, but they can't. And they're not things like, man, I didn't like the outfit I was wearing that day. Unfortunately, their posting regrets are things about how they see themselves as a person, who they are as a young man, a young woman, how they view their gender, their identity, their orientation. It's who they are at the core of themselves. Look at this, over 40% of them admit to having sexual conversations with other people online. Those are the ones that admit it. I think a lot of teenagers would tell me that it's a much higher number than that are having sexual conversations with people on social media. Next slide, please, that are having sexual conversations on social media. Where they're going online and they're talking about who they are. At the core of them, their interests, their desires, their curiosities when it comes to their sexuality as a young man or woman. Now, 25% of them admit to having these conversations with a complete stranger. They have no idea who the person is, no way of identifying their identity, who they really are, but yet they're sharing intimate information or desires about themselves with this complete stranger. 12% of them set up a face-to-face meeting in the real world with that stranger. Just let that sit on you for a second. I think we would all hope that number is 0.000, but yet more than 1 out of 10 of them having conversations with a complete stranger set up a real world meeting at the cinema, at the shopping center, at the park to meet with this person that they have no idea who it is. Now, I know what happens when we as parents and grandparents, as coaches and teachers and influencers in their lives, when we hear these kind of things, we're immediately shocked. And then we want to jump in and let me fix your problem. Which is really just, I'm telling you, you want to know how to offend a teenager? Then you just jump in and try to fix their problem, yes? Because in part, it is not my job, or it is not your job as a parent to fix your child. They already have a Savior. You can't fix them. I live with the reality, I can't fix my kids. I can pray for them. I can walk in truth and model truth and teach truth. Now it's up to the Holy Spirit to do His job. And that's a privilege they allow us to have in their life, is to humbly walk in front of them and say, can I help you with this? Can I show you something here? But not to fix them. So instead of jumping in to try to fix it, what if we take a step back and we try to understand the psychology and the sociology of technology in order to help them develop a healthy theology? I know that's a lot of ologies. But what I mean by that is this. We have to understand the head. What's going on inside their mind? Why do they choose what they do? Why did they conclude that this is okay to begin with? And then what's going on inside of their heart and how they form relationships and community? How do they connect with other people? Because now if I understand the head and the heart, then I can look at what's going on with technology and say, let me help you make a more discerning choice the next time. And so for you as teenagers this morning, I hope that as we walk through this, you don't see any of this as condemnation, because the reality is none of us here in this room have ever done anything better than you. We're all in process, and we're all gonna blow it. Yes? Okay, so none of this is condemnation. It's just to say, can we just take an honest look at what's going on in our culture and how it affects us? Okay, so we know that it's not just conversations, it's photos and video as well. That 20% of all girls, 25% of all girls, 20% of all guys admit to sending nude or semi-nude photos of themselves to other people on social media and texting. Again, I've been doing this long enough to know that I think it's a much higher number than that. Teenagers tell me it's a higher number than that. And so we have to ask the question, why would a 14-year-old girl go in her bedroom and take 87 selfies until she finally finds the one that makes her feel comfortable in her own skin and send it to some 15-year-old boy that she barely knows on social media? Because and then the response is, oh my gosh, you are so hot. You are so sexy. And now really what's happening in that moment, I want you to understand it, he's not just complimenting her physical appearance, he's feeding her soul because she has a God-given need to be loved, a God-given need to be desired, a God-given need for community and relationships and intimacy and vulnerability. He's wired her that way. And now he's affirming, he's taking what God meant to be good and twisting it. And it sounds like affirmation. It sounds like attraction. So now let's just be honest. What's going to happen to the next picture? Because there's going to be another picture, yes? Because now she's been affirmed. She feels attractive within herself. So why? So we've got to understand this as parents, as grandparents, even as teenagers, to take a step back and just question, what is it that's happening within myself right now that's making me feel this need to do this? There was a survey done by 17 magazine in conjunction with the Center to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, and they interviewed over 5,000 adolescent girls about their social media usage, and that's in part where I got some of this information. And one of the questions they asked them was, why? Like, why would you send a picture of yourself sharing part of your body that once you send it, you can never get it back again? 2 out of 3 of all girls, 67%, the number one answer, 67% said the reason why I did it was just to be fun or flirty. Like moms, can we agree we've just redefined flirting? Like flirting used to be putting a note in a boy's locker, I like you, do you like me, check yes, check no. Winking at a boy walking through the hallway, dropping a book and see if he picks it up, that's flirting. That's completely innocent. No one's being harmed. No one's character is being defiled. No one's body is being objectified. But yet now, 2 out of 3 of all girls said, well, this is what flirting is, isn't it? Now, why would they conclude that that's what flirting is? Because we've taught them that. That is why, because we are raising a generation of young men who feel like they have a right to ask for it. It is our responsibility as men, single men, married men, to model for the young men of what does it mean to respect a woman? What does it mean to honor women? I remember one day with my daughter, she's now a high school English teacher, but she was like 15 years old and we're in the car coming home from school, and she used to always just post pictures of like her hair getting ready for school, and all of her girlfriends would just like, encourage each other. Like, your outfit looks so cute today. And some boy at her private Christian school made a snarky sexual comment about my kid, and all it was her face. She goes, Dad, look at this. And my exact words were this: he has lost the right to communicate to you as a woman because he does not value you. Now what will you do? And she deleted it. Deleted him. Like, he's out of my life. He no longer gets access to me. And I encourage you girls, like, if he does not know how to respect you and the way that he speaks to you, the way that he looks at you, the way that he touches you, then he does not have access to you. That you have that within yourself to say, no, you don't get access to me. I own me. And so why 70% of all girls said that they feel pressure from guys to send inappropriate content of themselves. 70% of all girls said that they feel pressure from this. 55% of all girls say that when they meet someone new on social media, let's say that you have a daughter and she's all into anime. And so she decides to go in her Snapchat and join an anime, fan group, where they're gonna look at anime cartoons and drawings and talk about their favorite anime. And then all of a sudden, a new guy in the group sends her a PM, a private message. And so now she's having her first conversation with this new person. 55% of all girls say that within the first 10 minutes of a new conversation, a boy is going to send a message that says, SN, send me some nudes. Can you imagine? Like, mom, like psychologically, like what is going on inside of this 14-year-old? But every new conversation she has tells her that you're only worth what you're willing to share of yourself with someone else. Like I told my daughter, I said, I cannot imagine what it is like to be in your skin as a teenage girl today, where every single day of your life, you're being told, you need this makeup, you need these clothes, you need these kind of hips, you need this, whatever it is that the culture wants to pitch at you and tell you this is what beauty is. I don't know where all the teenage girls are, but I hear someone right here. Please hear me. This is what Scripture says you are. You are his child. You're God's redeemed. You are his chosen. You are his beloved. Like you are the royalty of heaven. And God forbid anyone objectify you and demean you because of how your body looks. You have so much more value than that. Guys, we got to be a louder voice. We got to be a clearer voice as parents and grandparents to help them understand who they are. I remember we just began to get like tuned into this, when we had teenagers. And sometimes, Mona would go in and write on the bathroom of my kid's bathroom, mirror with a dry erase marker. She would just write on there, you are God's child. You're God's chosen. And then just walk out of the room, not even say a word. Didn't have to, not a teaching moment. It's just a reminder. I know you're going to have voices all day long telling you who you should be. Here's the clearer one right here. And we should every day be reminding them of where their identity is found, because your identity does not come from how many friends, how many followers, how many shooting stars and thumbs up that you get on social media. It comes from the one that made you and said, I have paid a high price for you. And now your identity, your eternity is secure in me. And that's a firm foundation to stand on, yes? And so we know that 70% of them struggle with this, that we have this generation of guys saying that I have the right to this. And it's in part because they see, they engage with technology differently than we do. We don't understand how it affects our brains, because their brains and our brains work differently, not because their brains are defective, they're not. Their brains work exactly the way that God meant for a teenage brain to work. But a teenage brain lives in the immediacy of life. Like so when your school counselor comes to you and says, hey, where are you going to go to college next year? And what AP classes are you taking next year? And you're like, I don't even know what I'm having for lunch today, because you live in the immediacy of life, right? But that's not where our brains work differently. If you and I go have lunch after church, and what is your name? Alan? Alan. So Alan and I go and have lunch together, and he starts opening up and sharing all kind of things happening in his family. And he's just being really vulnerable and just sharing some hard stuff with his kids, and we have a great lunch together. Are Alan and I friends? This is not a trick question. I just met you, Alan, and we had lunch together. Are we friends? I'm gonna tell you, absolutely, we're not friends, Alan. That sounds so awkward to say, doesn't it? No, we're not friends. We spent an hour together. He's not my friend. We had a great conversation. It was very meaningful, but we're not friends. But let's say that we start meeting together every Monday. We have coffee together. We start sharing life together. We're being vulnerable with each other. And after 2 years, are we friends? Yes, because we've done all the social, emotional, mental requirements of friendship. But what happens is we go on social media and we connect with people. Oh, you're friends with my friend, that's friend with my friend? I guess we could be friends. We call them our friend, for crying out loud. We just met the person. We even call them our followers, as if like we're a cult leader. Like, how narcissistic is that? But yet that's how it is our fault. Let me just tell you, I'm gonna own it, okay? It's our fault. We modeled it for you. And we did it wrong. Why? Because we're parents of the 80s. And the 80s were the me generation. You talk about the narcissistic generation that lived for ourselves. And then we raised children. You guys, and we didn't know what to do. And so we created this stuff for you and called it friends and followers. And somewhere along the way, we got to own that, guys. We got to own it and say, can we do better by you? I love you enough to stand in the gap for you as my kid, to address some of these hard things. I think one of the biggest things that's affecting our kids and we don't want to talk about, it feels so uncomfortable to us. Matter of fact, it feels so uncomfortable to us that we've basically said to our spiritual enemy, I'll let you have this win. I'll let you have this one because I don't want to talk about it. And it's digital porn. It is one of the biggest things. Like, it is so different for their generation than ours. If we wanted to look at porn as a teenager, we got to go down to the local 7-Eleven. It's on the newspaper rack in front of everybody, wrapped up in plastic. I got to buy. It's all these steps, a whole process. Today, mini computer in my pocket, 3 seconds. Anything. We know over 55 million teenagers and kids starting at the age of 10 have got this. Every teenager that's ever looked at porn will say the first place they saw it was Google search or their cell phone. Like, if you don't know whether or not it's affecting look at this. These stats here, we know that 93% of all guys admit to looking at digital porn. I think that means 7% of teenage guys are liars, yes? Yeah, and over half of all teenage girls admit to looking at it. I'm not shocked by those numbers. I am shocked by, honestly, I've done this for 23 years, full-time doing this. I'm still shocked by the fact that 83% of all guys and over half of all girls say that they watch group sex videos on their phones. Now, we're not going to get into this morning in church of ranking different types of porn. But I think we can agree that what God gave us as one of his greatest gifts to humanity, as people, the only thing in this creation made in his image, he gave us the gift of sexual intimacy. And he called it a holy thing between a man and a woman committed for life in a covenant relationship. And then now our culture has said, we're going to take a whole group of people and make videos of it. There was a study that came out 8 years ago from UNC Chapel Hill and from their psych department. And the research concluded that over half of middle school boys in the state of North Carolina were struggling from the fear of sexuality. And they are not sexually active. Their conclusion was from interviewing middle school boys that they said they have watched so much porn on their phones as 12 to 14-year-olds that they are afraid of sex. That what God meant to be good, the enemy has turned into a fear. Like, if you don't know whether or not it's affecting your kid, answer these questions. Do you live in a conservative state? Are you a registered Republican? Are you theologically conservative? Do you volunteer in your community? Do you have a college degree? Do you are above average income? Because for everything that you say yes to, it increases the likelihood that your kid may be exposed to porn. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? I mean, those are all things we would say are good things, right? Which is the problem. Because of everything that becomes, like, in our mind as a parent, a grandparent, a good thing, a creature comfort, then we get settled within us and think, okay, everything is okay now. Well, we pulled our kids out of public school last year and now we're in private school. Now they're okay. Oh yeah, we don't do private school. We homeschool now because all homeschoolers love Jesus, right? So they're okay. Oh man, I finally got a raise and we can buy the lake house and spend time together as a family. Oh yeah, but to get the lake house, I had to work 15 more hours a week, so I'm getting completely relationally checked out for my kids. I mean, we got to cheat somewhere. We're going to cheat something. And either we got to check it at work and check it in our careers and say, I'm only going to give so much of myself to this because I'm going to take the time that I have to invest it wisely in my family. I spent 18 years of my kids' life saying no to everything else so I could say yes to them. And I encourage you to do the same thing. To use this time wisely, to have these uncomfortable conversations. Let me close with this, that I encourage you as teenagers to begin to develop a theology of technology. I know Scripture doesn't address technology, but I think there's some principles there that we can apply of how we use screens in our life. So just begin to ask ourselves 3 questions. The first question is this, does the way that I use technology, does it objectify or exploit other people? Ephesians 5:3, we looked at it already. Among you, don't let there be even a hint of sexual immorality. So in the way that I communicate and use social media, is it objectifying others? Is it socially, sexually demeaning to other people? Number two, ask the question, in the way that I use technology, does it spread gossip, lies, or hurt the character of other people? Meaning, like, do the words that I use, are they edifying of other people and the people I'm talking about on social media? What if we as teenagers decided we're gonna redeem technology? That in your youth group, you're gonna begin to use technology in a way that elevates the value of people around you. Like, and again, as grown-ups, if you don't think this is relevant, just go back in your own lives and think 3 months ago about the election cycle. I mean, you wanna know why people don't want to be a part of us as Christ followers? All you gotta look at is our political comments on social media. Because they look at us and the things that we say and go, oh yeah, they're really no different from us. They're just as bitter, just as hateful, just as cruel. Guys, we have a responsibility to be the pace setters, to set the bar of what it means to be a son and daughter of Jesus and the way that we use technology. Number three, last question is this. Does the way that I use technology, is it respectful and honoring to others and myself? Ephesians 4:2, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowances for each other's faults because of your great love for each other. So the way that I use technology, does it honor the people around me? Is it honoring my relationship with the Creator? And is it honoring of who He's made me to be as God's child? Now listen, I can't answer any of those questions for you. They have to be questions that you have to take an honest examination of your own life as a parent, as a teenager, to ask yourself. But I think that we can begin to do it differently. I think that your generation can do it better than our generation did. You know, there's a resource that your church has purchased for you because they care about you guys as parents and grandparents. It's the only thing like it in the country called Screen Smarts. It's a 53-week online technology course that takes 6 minutes a week. And the way that it works is when you register through your church link, that you're gonna begin to get an email every Monday morning that's gonna be a 5-minute video or article from us at Screen Smarts, helping you to understand what's going on with your kids and grandkids with technology. Could you put that up on the screen, please? And so I encourage you, you could take out your phones, take a screenshot, or even just right now, go to screensmarts.org/FBC Rock Hill. That's your church's registration link. It's just gonna ask for your name, phone number, and email, and that's it. And then you'll get signed. Over 178,000 parents have been getting the emails from us, learning about how to use this stuff, creating a theology of technology for their life. Guys, I know this is heavy stuff. This is probably the heaviest message I've given you guys in 4 years. You're like, are we about done? I know that you can do this though. I know that you can, for 2 reasons. One, I believe that you have him, Alan, because of a divine providence of God. I don't know how he ended up in your home, by birth, by remarriage, by adoption, how he ended up there, but I believe that God intentionally gave you the son, gave you the child that you have, because he said, I'm gonna entrust them to your care to partner with me to raise the next generation of my sons and daughters. Wow. The second reason I know you can do that is this. In Philippians chapter 1, God made a promise to you. He said, I have begun a work in you, a good work in you. And he says, and I will not stop until I send my son to come back again. And what that means is this, that you might be the mom that yelled at your kids yesterday, but guess what, sister? Tomorrow, you get to wake up being a little bit more like Jesus, and it has nothing to do with your obedience. It only has to do with his promise to you that he will not stop. Maybe you're the dad that was sarcastic. Guess what? Tomorrow, you get to be a little bit more like Jesus because he has promised to always be at work in you. Some days when I had teenagers, that was the only thing I could cling on. is just hold on to that promise that today, Dad, God, I feel like I really messed up, but I'm trusting you. I may not feel like it, but tomorrow I get to be a little bit more like your son. Steve's gonna come and just lead us through a time of response. And I ask you guys just to come, maybe pray for your kids, teenagers, maybe just talk with each other and just say, dude, this is what's happening with me. Can we just download with each other a few minutes here in the service? Steve, would you just come now? Thank you guys, God bless you.